Welcome to Veronica Live, and it's Veronica Live Unplugged. It's our third episode. I'm here with statesman John Salick. Merry Christmas, John.
Merry Christmas to you, Veronica. Day number 5 after Christmas. What a great cold day it is up here on the farm.
So true. Well, and so far this morning we've had a few tech issues, but we're getting better at it. So, just shout out to my husband, the techie.
Chief engineer of the Veronica Live show.
Exactly. And we both got new mics, these Yetis, and they're not Yeti coolers or Yeti mics. So mine's pink, and wow, they sound wonderful.
I know.
Well, I do want to tease our lineup. This morning, we've got a huge show, as usual. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Sweazey, he's on the national stage. He's the executive director of the American Constitutional Rights Union, and he's also running to be candidate for the Dallas County GOP. He wants to be their chairman, so this is going to be quite exciting. We'll talk to him to see why he's doing this, because he's known on the national stage, and this is the local level. So we'll see what he has to say. And then we're going to be joined by retired Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Sweazey. He's a fighter pilot that has been taking on the Department of Defense Inspector General system, trying to clean it up, and he's the founder and president of walkthetalkfoundation.org. And he was on this spring. He always gets a lot of traction, John, because he's fighting for people that are trying to take on the system that are beating them down. So we'll see how it's going, because he's got congressional support, and he's one of the good guys out there. And then this is a huge interview. We're going to have Peter Feaman. He is our Florida National Committeeman. He's running to be the chairman of the Republican Party of Florida. As you know, our current chairman, Christian Ziegler, has been embroiled in a sex scandal, has refused to resign. So they're having this meeting January 8th to make him, I guess they're going to oust him, and then the races between Peter Feaman, our National Committeeman, and then Evan Power, who is the current vice chair. So we're going to talk to Peter, see why he's the best candidate. And I look forward to chatting with him, John, because I know I've known him for 10 years. I'm sure you've known him for a lot longer.
I've known him for many years, probably, I think 14 years so far. So,
yeah.
And he's really one of the best national committeemen we've ever had from the state of Florida, and a leader at the national level.
And at this point, we need somebody that's an adult in the room. So we've got a big show, and statesman John Salick's here. And we're going to talk later about Christmas and all the news as well. So we'll be right back with Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Sweazey. Welcome back to Veronica Live, and we're here with our first guest this morning, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Sweazey, and you know him. He's on the national stage. He's executive director for the American Constitutional Rights Union, and he's running for office to be the chairman of the Dallas County GOP. So welcome back, Colonel Sweazey. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you, Veronica. And it's good to be back with you and the listening audience there in northwest panhandle of Florida.
Well, it's, a busy time of year. And the first thing I want to mention is that I'm so happy your new grandson, Levi, a.k.a. Ranger, is thriving. And so I know what a blessing to welcome your second grandson. And, he had a rough go, the little man, but he's doing well. So tell me about that real fast.
Yeah. Well, it's just want to thank everyone for their prayers. He was born at 29 weeks, and he was only 3 pounds, 2.5 ounces, but I was just with him for a good deal of time yesterday, and he is almost 8 pounds now. And, from October the 12th to where he is now, it's just been a blessing, and it was great to have him for his first Christmas in our home. So just again, thanks everyone for their prayers.
Well, that's blessings. I wanted to start off because I think the hottest issue right now, Colonel Sweazey, is our border. I think they had a record-breaking day the other day with 15,000 illegals coming through. It's nonstop chaos. How can we stop this? We're being overrun, and I'm sure half of them are terrorists coming through.
Yeah, it's a good portion of it. And, when you hear these estimation numbers of, gotaways, 1 million, 1.5 million, whatever, I always tell people to put that into perspective that, you have allowed more people into this country that you don't know who they are, where they are, than we have as far as our active duty strength of the Army and the Marine Corps combined. So that lets you know the threat that we have to our national security and our domestic security right here. But when you look at this Biden administration, this is a complete violation of the Constitution, complete violation of rule of law. And look, I know Hunter Biden is not a good guy, and everybody wants to show that Joe Biden's corrupt. This is what we should be impeaching Joe Biden on, is undermining the sovereignty of the United States of America intentionally and purposefully, and lying to the American people about it, and trying to, shift blame and all of this. So you're looking at a drug trafficking crisis with the fentanyl that has killed hundreds of thousands of Americans. You're looking at a human and sex trafficking crisis. And now, Veronica, we know that we have a health crisis because we have tuberculosis, we have syphilis, we have all of these other diseases that are coming to this country because these are individuals, they're not told to get a shot. They're not checked for vaccines or anything. They're just released into our country. And so I will tell you, I'm not very happy with our Texas Governor, Greg Abbott, and what he's doing on the border. And this whole thing is a political stunt to put people on buses and planes and, send them to, sanctuary cities. Send them back across the border. That should be the thing that everyone should be seeking to do.
Well, and that brings us to the upcoming 2024 election. I feel like this is the election of our lifetime. And, I wanted your thoughts on Trump. They keep trying, now Maine, it's just a kabuki theater that now the Maine election lady has kicked him off the ballot. Colorado has two. I mean, this is ridiculous. When are we going to embrace that Trump is the candidate, move on, and let the voters choose our next president?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you always hear the left talk about undermining democracy and all of these things. They're the ones that are undermining our sovereignty. They're the ones that are undermining our constitutional republic. They're the ones that are violating our rule of law. They're the ones that are undermining our representative democracy. Not only are they allowing all of these, millions of illegals to come into our country, I mean, they're talking about allowing them to vote in local elections, which means they're going to try to get them to vote in national elections. And so when you look at these bureaucrats, these unelected, or elected individuals, but still a Secretary of State should not be making a decision about a GOP candidate. And the Supreme Court out in Colorado misusing Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to try to say that Donald Trump was an insurrectionist. Number one, he hasn't been charged with that. Number two, no one in even the January 6th people, none of these individuals have been charged with insurrection. So it's just a word that the left has come up with and thrown around. And last time I checked, Donald Trump has never taken up arms against the United States of America or violated his constitutional oath to the United States of America, which is what the Section 3 of Amendment 14th Amendment was all about. If there's anybody that has violated their oath to the Constitution, it's Joe Biden.
So true.
Colonel, this is co-host John Sack. I was just curious, what is your opinion of this situation we have where things are bad all right? We have the situation with the immigration, and it just doesn't seem the outrage by the citizens are there, to force the administration into doing something. I mean, and I watched this past week, I think it was in Chicago, they had a city council meeting, and the people were getting up there and complaining that the illegal immigrants, the illegal aliens is what they really are, we're getting all these benefits, and they weren't getting their share of the benefits. I mean, is that what our society has come down to?
Well, I think that you're going to see a greater backlash when you have, blacks, Hispanics, Asians all across the country in these urban centers, like you said, Chicago or New York or elsewhere, that are standing up and speaking out against this, illegals being brought into their neighborhoods and communities. That's going to have a political effect and ramification. But that's why I just can't understand why the left thinks that they can just, push this and bully the American people into, this open borders agenda. And then furthermore, when you hear about, funds being shifted away from our veterans, the VA administration, over to support illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, that again is something that the American people are not going to tolerate. Then on top of that, you look and see what's happening on the streets while these pro-Hamas sympathizers and demonstrators who, were wrecking Christmas, trying to cancel Christmas, things of this nature here in the United States of America, and the left continues to try to protect them. They're setting themselves up for a political disaster in 2024. And I know they try to suppress the news. They have a media that is complicit and trying to enable their ideological agenda. But I think the American people are going to rise up and say, we don't want this. And the folks here in Texas are definitely livid. You go down to talk to ranchers along the border, they are livid.
Well, I don't even know how you all are dealing with all of these people, Colonel West. How is Texas handling this? I mean, it just seems like it's just too many illegals, and there's no way we can handle this. And
Well, no, and it's amazing. As you drive around, I'm up here in Dallas County, Dallas area, and you're starting to see it. I mean, when you look out on the corners and in the medians of major intersections, and you see these young Hispanic women with their children, either on their backs or on their front packs or standing there selling flowers, that's trafficking. And the cartels have put them out there to sell these flowers to try to, earn their keep. So it's right in our faces. And here in Dallas, we're one of the top cities in the United States of America for human and sex trafficking. So this is a big concern, and I think that more people are going to awaken to it, and they want to see it resolved.
Well, I want to...
It's an interesting comment, Colonel West, because I was up in New York City a couple of weeks ago, and I saw the exact same thing while we were driving through New York City with all these people out, slow traffic, of course, it's New York City traffic. And here you have all these people out there selling flowers and bread and all kinds of stuff that I'd never seen before,
Yep, that's what it is. And so, it's one of those things. If you see something, say something. And I wish more citizens, law enforcement should go over and, take these young women and say, bring them in and talk to them, saying, where are you from, who trafficked you, and let's start pulling apart this network that we have. And I think that we're not serious about going after cartels. We know who these people are. We know where their bank accounts are. We know where they live, and we got to start peeling the onion back on them.
So true.
Do you think it's going to get to the point where we're going to close the border? I mean, is that the pendulum's going to swing the other way at some point? And is it going to end up being where we go back to a closed border like we have historically had in this country?
Well, I think without a doubt you have to secure the border, and I believe that you have to have tighter controls at your points of entry. But without a doubt, in between your points of entry, you should not have people pouring across the border. I mean, that's just wrong. But the thing is that you either have to have some type of physical barrier or obstacle, or you have to have boots on the ground that preclude that from happening. And right now, we're not doing an effective job of either. This is not about putting more Border Patrol agents out there. This is about a policy that has rendered the Border Patrol irrelevant. ICE is not going out and doing what they're supposed to do, which is deporting individuals, and they've been told not to. The recent report has come out that the Biden administration has the lowest number of deportations than many of the previous administrations nearly put together.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Colonel West, do you feel like President Biden and Secretary Blinken are tying Netanyahu's hands in Israel? I mean, I feel like it's been since all of this, they've been meddling, and Israel needs to take these people out. And part two of that question is, why do you think Americans are so naive? My children live in New York City, and at Thanksgiving, I endured 3 of these Hamas protest when I was just trying to run around and enjoy my Thanksgiving. And it's just such naivete on behalf of these American, students, people. So I wonder your thoughts on that.
Well, first question answer is yes. There is no doubt that, President Biden, Blinken, Secretary of Defense Austin, all of them are going over there to try to put the kibosh on Israel. They are fighting against an Islamic terrorist organization whose charter, whose reason for existence is to eradicate, eliminate, and annihilate the Jewish people and the modern-day nation-state of Israel. So you can't coexist with those folks. You can't live with those folks. And look, 2005, when Ariel Sharon made the decision that Israel will pull out of Gaza, what has happened since 2005? It was a year or two later that Hamas came in, and they were the governing authority. Hamas is a derivative of the Muslim Brotherhood. And, for an administration like the Biden administration to do everything to kowtow to Iran, they're the reason. The Biden administration is the reason why Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, the number one sponsor of Islamic terrorism, has been, refurbished, repurposed, and rearmed and refitted, because they have opened up the oil revenues and the royalties thereof, because we're not enforcing the sanctions. They have sent them billions of dollars, just the same as the Obama administration did with palletized cash. And so you look at that and the propaganda that is out there. That's the reason why we have all of this anti-Semitism. You look at those Ivy League presidents that testified there before the House committee. This is why these young people out there basically stuck on stupid. People have forgotten Leon Klinghoffer. Leon Klinghoffer, the wheelchair-bound American that was shot and his body thrown into the Mediterranean Sea in his wheelchair off the Achille Lauro cruise ship by who? Palestinian terrorists. We forgot 40 years ago that Hezbollah killed some 254 Marine soldiers and sailors in the Beirut barracks bombing. And how nutty it is that you have people going out supporting an Islamic terrorist organization in New York City, where it wasn't too long ago when the Islamic terrorist organization flew airplanes into the Twin Towers there. So true.
It's interesting that speak of it's not just the Israelis and Hamas. It's, U.S. troops are being attacked over there. I think it's been over 100 attacks, in the past couple of months.
106.
And we've actually had U.S. service people injured. I think one of them was critically injured a couple of days ago, and our response is nothing. We shoot a $1 million cruise missile to blow up an empty building. That may be our response.
Blow up a warehouse. Yeah, and think about it. Before Christmas, you had the leader of the Houthis go on, TV and, issue a threat against the United States of America. That would not happen if a Donald Trump was in office, because some people in the world only respect strength and might. And right now they see weakness, and not just weakness, but abject weakness. And that is enticing, that is emboldening them. And so, we know where these launch sites are that the Houthis are using. Every one of them should be bombed to oblivion. We should not allow, Iran to be able to transit back and forth with material support and resources. We should be freezing their oil revenues. We should be tough on their sanctions. When Donald Trump was in office, we had squeezed Iran so hard that Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, these guys were out there with lemonade stands and cookie sales trying to raise money because it had just dried up. But now, the Biden administration has opened up the floodgates. So, number one, if you want to undermine Islamic jihadism and terrorism and Russia and what they're doing, make us once again energy independent, maybe energy dominant, because that is a key resource that leads to your national security. But again, this administration is undermining our energy policy and energy security.
Well, I wanted to also ask you, with this anti-Semitism stuff, why has Harvard not taken out Dr. Gay, the president, now with the plagiarism? And, there's stories out there saying Obama's called people to keep her, in her position. Yeah. And once again, it's a DEI issue. I'm a Hispanic, you're African American. Yep. We bring our A game to everything we do. We don't plagiarize. And why is this woman still there with a $50 billion endowment? She needs to go. I'm so embarrassed for Harvard.
Well, this is what DEI does. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, says that it's not about standards, it's about identity politics. And, Barack Obama out there calling, saying you need to keep her in place. Well, that just shows you that if it weren't for not having any standards at all, Democrats would not be able to spell the word standard. And so this complete disregard for ethics and morals and values and our rule of law, this is what the Democrat Party has become. And I think that if Republicans want to be successful, they've got to go on the offense, and they've got to, expose them for who they are, and they got to be relentless, and they have to be ruthless in doing so, because, that's who we are. Barack Obama is the guy who said that you should never take a knife to a gunfight. Well, that's their mentality, by any means necessary. And so on our side, people need to go out and read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, because that's how they operate. That's how they roll. And if you don't understand their playbook, if you don't understand their mentality, and you don't understand what drives them, you're not going to be successful. And so we need to have fighters. And, that's the people here in Dallas County came to me and asked me if I'd consider running to be the chairman of the Republican Party here in Dallas County, because here we are in Texas now, and in the county of Dallas, there are no elected countywide Republicans. I want people to understand that wow. Texas says is this great red state, but yet here in Dallas County, not a single Republican in a countywide office. And oh, by the way, going into 2024, 75% of the countywide elections in this election cycle are unopposed. 73% of the judicial elections in Dallas County are unopposed. So this is what the left is doing, even in red states. They're coming in, taking over the major urban population centers, and defeating us.
Well, it's interesting because here in Florida, even Miami-Dade is starting to turn red from it was been solidly blue for a long time. One of the things about the DEI I wanted to ask you about was Texas has a law that takes effect, on the 1st of January about closing DEI offices at the colleges. Yeah. And in one of our stack of stuff stories we have is talking about how the Texas Public University is planning to work around that office and take all those DEI staff and rename them something else. It's sort of like the Common Core education system there. Yeah, same thing. Yeah. Well, we're just going to change the name of it to something else, and we're not going to call it Common Core anymore. So we're it's just how insidious these people are.
Yeah, and it's all cultural Marxism. That's what we should call it. And so University of Texas San Antonio is one of the schools that they just came out and said that this whole staff, they're going to keep it, but they're just going to rename it. And so, again, I think what you have to do is just cut off the funding. Just Texas A&M University, which everyone thought is a very strong conservative school, they just hired a DEI advocate and a former Obama administration official as its president. Wow. Texas A&M University.
Oh,
no. I already know that the University of Texas Austin. I mean, everyone calls Austin, Texas, Moscow on the Colorado River, because it's beyond socialist down in Austin, Texas. I mean, so this is what's happening in Texas, and this is the playbook of the left. And so we have got to, where we have Republican leadership in governor's mansions and things of this nature, we've got to put the hammer down on these things, and we've got to stop providing, the taxpayer benefits. And who cares if they file lawsuits? Governor Abbott says that we're going to start arresting illegals. You don't need to arrest them and charge them with a misdemeanor. Just collect them up and send them back across the border. That's the bottom line. And if the Biden administration wants to file a lawsuit, tell them you can file lawsuits all day long. But we're going to continue to send people back across the Rio Grande River into Mexico. We don't care what the president of Mexico says, because America is a sovereign nation. Texas is a sovereign state.
Well, on that note, I wanted to ask you, have we not given Ukraine enough money at this point, Colonel West?
Yeah, look, you've got to have some type of accountability. And it's really hard to say to the American people, we're going to send billions upon billions of dollars to Ukraine, but we're not going to protect our own border. We're going to allow anybody to come across our border, to include terrorists, but yet we're going to try to do something to protect Ukraine. And this false thing about we have to do it or else we send a message to Russia. If you just restore our energy independence, that sends a message to Russia. And I think that the other European nations need to step up to the plate. And the number one thing that Ukraine needs, and I'll say this very plainly, even from being a soldier, they need to be able to control their airspace. If they cannot control their airspace, it doesn't matter how many billions of dollars you send them. There should not be Russian jets flying over Ukrainian airspace. There should not be, these artillery systems that are able to occupy ground there in Ukraine and fire upon Ukrainian towns, drones, and all of these things. So that's the number one thing that they need. And they asked for MiG fighters, and this administration said no. So, they don't need F-16s. They asked for MiG fighters, something they're used to. So let's get them those MiG fighters. And let's have an accountability and an audit for all the money that we sent them before we send them another dime.
So true.
Colonel West, one of the things I'm really, you're a soldier and you've been in war. The thing about Ukraine that gets me is we're not fighting. We're not trying to help the Ukrainians win. We're trying to help them fight to a stalemate. And we just give them a little bit of stuff, just enough to keep them going, but we won't give them the stuff to overwhelm the enemy, which is how you win wars. Yeah. And why is that? What's the thinking behind it? Do you have any idea?
Well, I think the Biden administration is caught in a little catch-22. I think that there's a lot of nefarious business ties between, Hunter, Joe, and whomever to Ukraine, and I think that they just want to continue to have the money that is flowing into there instead of, like you say, having a decisive action, which is what you should want to do. For me, that means providing them the aerial supremacy and the means by which they can achieve that. So this administration makes no sense in anything: economic policy, energy policy, foreign policy, national security policy, border policy, domestic security, nothing. They make no sense whatsoever. They're ideologues, they're progressives, socialists, Marxists, borderline communists. And I think that what they're trying to do is, without a doubt, create a situation of chaos all across the globe. And now Xi Jinping has told Joe Biden, I want Taiwan, and that's part of China, and no one's going to tell us that we can't. So that's the next thing that will sometime this year pop on the radar screen.
Well, we only have a couple minutes left, Colonel West. When is your actual election for that chairman position?
Yeah, the election is the first Tuesday in March.
Okay.
That's March the 5th. The early voting starts the 20th of February, and I'll be on the ballot here in Dallas County as running as the chairperson here for the Republican Party. And again, we have got to start turning things around in these major urban population centers, and we cannot exist in a red state and in a city in an area like Dallas, in this metroplex, which is in the top 10 in the country, and you don't have an elected countywide Republican. That's unconscionable.
That's so true. Well, I also want to let everyone know you will be back in Panama City February 22nd, and you are the guest speaker for the Warrior Beach Retreat, and we host 12 combat veterans with their spouses, and it's a huge event. There's a parade. I'll be driving you in the parade with F-35s flying over. Hopefully I don't crash, but we'll have some air power, and the whole world will come out to hear you, Colonel West, as you give back to these warriors that have, given so much for our nation and our country. So it's been such a pleasure. I want to wish you a happy new year, and we will see you soon.
Happy New Year, y'all. I'm looking forward to it. And please, y'all, come out and support those who are willing to make the last full measure of devotion for us to have our rights, freedoms, and liberties. So we'll see you in Panama City Beach.
All right. God bless. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Veronica Live, and we're here with retired Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Sweazey, and he is the founder and president of Walk the Talk Foundation, and you are taking on fighting for our military members that have, been, I guess, caught in the crosshairs when it comes to the Inspector General office. Something, has gone wrong with them in the military, and they've gone to the IG office for help, and it's not always going their way, and I wanted to have you back to see how it's going, because I follow you on LinkedIn, Ryan, and you're always putting all kinds of op-eds out there fighting for these service members. So I had to have you back. So welcome back.
Yeah, thanks, Veronica. Appreciate it, and good to be back.
Yeah, so let's start with your story and why you started the Walk the Talk Foundation. You're the founder and president of this important organization.
Yeah, so I used to be an inspector general myself in the Air Force when I was active duty from about 2013 to 2016, and I saw a lot of the shortcomings of the system. And then I saw the flip side of that coin when I was a victim of reprisal when I was in the Defense Intelligence Agency towards the end of my active duty career. And the main issue I saw was that there is this avenue which purports itself to be independent and looking out for the individual service member, but in reality, it's just another arm of the military institution's command influence. The individual complainant, who is usually a victim, really has the deck stacked against them when they're trying to seek justice for administrative, not criminal matters, because they have no representation, they have no counsel, they get no advisement, they get nothing, and they have to veritably prove their case pro se, as the lawyers say, like on their own, against this entire government juggernaut, which is typically poised to defeat them, so to speak, to discount, discredit their story, and rule against them. So because of that, I started the foundation, and we just basically walk people through these confounding, difficult, bureaucratically laden processes because nobody else is on their side. They don't get a military lawyer. If they want representation, they have to pay for it out of pocket. It's really kind of sad, actually, how the military sets them up for failure, and our foundation works to help them, hopefully, to success.
Well, and on your website, you had that you've had 208 clients come to you, and so tell me how that's going, and you still have 29 open cases now that you're involved with. I mean, that's a huge number, and as you were saying, these military members, there's nowhere else for them to go, and a lot of times, to hire a lawyer is a lot of money too. It's just too much.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. We have way too many cases for the bandwidth that we can take on, and it's a myriad of things that are contributing to that. Number one, like you said, people can't afford to keep a lawyer on retainer, and a lawyer in a lot of administrative processes doesn't really do much. They don't have any more leverage than the normal service member does. They can't compel the military to act faster or act in better faith or what have you. So it's kind of money, I don't want to say wasted, but something just short thereof. And we also have a lot of clientele because, to my knowledge at least, we're the only foundation that does this. And it's a constant stream of people coming to us. And it all follows the same pattern, which is I was wronged. I'm trying to seek redress or justice, and the system is pummeling me, working against me.
Well, I guess one of the things I was really interested in, Ryan, as I was reading all these op-eds that you've written, was the upper echelon people in charge, the generals, they don't seem to care about changing and fixing the system, because once you reach those positions, it's about me. So talk about that.
Yeah, that's been the most disappointing and enlightening thing all at the same time to watch. So the foundation work, we obviously aren't firsthand witness to the events themselves, why people file complaints or file allegations, but we are firsthand witnesses to as they go through the process seeking redress. And time again, and it really confounds me, especially in this day and age where We're hurting to recruit. We're hurting to retain talent. But at the end of the day, when someone goes to an upper echelon senior officer, more oftentimes than not, there is a mutually exclusive decision, which is to decide or to side with the individual member and truth, justice, the American way, et cetera, or the side of protecting the sanctity of the institution. And unfortunately, many times it's the latter. It's, okay, at the expense of your psychological, mental well-being, many times personal well-being, professional well-being, we are just going to unsubstantiate your claim and move on, because to substantiate would be to admit culpability or fault on behalf of the military, and that is something that we refuse to do. And that's what's so unfortunate about so many of these cases.
Right.
Ryan, do you think the issue is that the General Officer Corps has become basically a political operation more than a military operation? And I say that, starting with Milley, where he was basically saying, hey, I'm in charge, and I don't have to pay attention to the President of the United States, I can operate independently. And if, he wants to launch it, Trump wants to launch a nuke attack, I'm going to stop it. It's just, the behavior is so outrageous and so far beyond what our Constitution allows the military to do. What's driving that mentality in the officer corps?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, John. They operate with impunity. Is impunity defined? It is the zero accountability General Officer Corps now, and I could rattle off a dozen laws that they brazenly disregard fairly consistently nowadays. And I think it's a matter of the fact that we kind of quip a lot of times that the Department of Defense has become the Department of Defense of itself. It is indicative of an institution that now exists first and foremost, not for the defense of the nation, sadly, not for the welfare of the individual, but for its own continued survival. And it can do that because no other branch of the government holds it in check anymore. Congress has proven itself to be completely impotent when it comes to holding these people to account. Even though they're violating the laws and the Constitution of the United States, they do so to no account. And now you're seeing the result of that an organization in the Department of Defense that has just completely wandered off the reservation because it was allowed to. And now here we are.
Well,
I've had personal experience in that regard, with export licenses and stuff where, I go to the Department of State and get an export license and then go to DOD and say, here's an export license for this military technology. And DOD tells me, you can't export it. I say, but state said I can export it. And DOD says, nope, we're not going to let you. And then you go back to state and they say, well, they don't really have the authority to do that, but we can't stop them from not doing that, not following the law. And it's like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah, and here's the scary part is that when you see an institution like the military that has now a monopoly on the truth, and that's what's frightening to me, is that they determine the sky is green, and to question that is to invite punishment, and it doesn't change anything. And it's almost, you kind of chuckle because it's almost North Korean regime in that regard. Like we will tell you what the truth is, and no one is going to call that into question. And if they do, they're met with their demise.
Well, you wrote one of your little op-eds was your recent one, a call to boycott the military, and on LinkedIn people were getting mad. And one of the facts, reading all of your content was, and it's just mind-boggling, the military sexual trauma. I guess 1 in 3 women are harassed or assaulted, and people are kind of like turning a blind eye to this. Luckily, I never had that happen to me. But recently, Senator Martha McSally, a former fighter pilot, said she was assaulted by a superior officer. So, obviously this has been going on for a long time. So there's, don't join the military, and the women being assaulted issue is very scary. But I see why you're saying this.
Yeah, there's a lot of kerfluffle about the boycott, but my counter to that is, so what else is going to incite change? So we look at the past 30 years now. Okay, let's talk about the military sexual trauma issue, because I think that's very indicative. 30 years of our service women and men being assaulted, abused, raped. And what do we have to show for it after all this legislation, millions and billions of dollars dumped into these sexual assault program offices, training and attention? What do we have to show? A quote-unquote independent investigative arm now, which is still under the DOD. It's a joke. It's total farce. But that's indicative of how unwilling the military is to change of its own volition. So I asked these people, like, oh, we can't have a boycott. That's preposterous. Well, what else? What other leverage do we have? It's not the Congress. It's not the press. It's not people spouting off on social media. None of those avenues, which have maybe in the past been effective, will no longer affect change in the military. They are just ineffective. So what do we have left? The only problem that can't be ignored, which is the recruiting crisis. If there aren't people around to serve, and there needs to be, then the military can't ignore that. They have to square that off, and they do so by improving. That's the vision here. It's not to just gut the military, scorched earth. The end state of the boycott would be a healthier military, a more viable defense, because it's a problem that the military has to confront, and they have to do so by making themselves more attractive.
But, I think a lot of it is just we've turned the military into a social experiment, and it's a failed social experiment, unfortunately. I'm all for women doing whatever they can, but not in the military. As I've said many times on this show, the purpose of the military is to break things and kill people, and it takes a certain mentality and a certain kind of training to be able to do that. And I just think the social experiment is a mass failure. And when we get into a really, really big shooting war with the Chinese or whoever the next major player is, we're not dominating them like we did in Afghanistan and Iraq is we're going to be in trouble. I mean, I just do not see, the military that I see today is not the military I was in 40 years ago. It's just
not at all. It's an eroded shell of itself. And to your point about the social experiment, I agree. And the problem is that the military is a unique organization in that you must, for it to be viable, everybody has to sacrifice a little bit of their individual identity for the betterment of the unit, the groups, the corps, what have you. That is the whole premise of a military, is that you sacrifice for the betterment of the greater good of the organization. It's unlike many organizations within the government in that regard. So to have this increase and maybe overemphasis on the individual, it actually is a mutually exclusive aim to that of military esprit de corps and functionality.
Well, I mean, Millie definitely pulled back when it came to the pride stuff. And I feel that same way, Ryan, because I don't care about that. It's about the military and being a cohesive unit, not your gay pride flag. And it was so ridiculous how this was pushed in our face. So one of your op-eds, too, is the U.S. military second rate and loving it. So, and we have a brand new Joint Chief of Staff, General CQ Brown, and he came to Tyndall, and I got to meet him at a Military Affairs Committee event, and before he took over the helm, and but we just had Alan West on, and Alan West has come out. He is anti-General Brown because of these DEI issues being pushed down, and it's not about the quality and your capability of flying a fighter jet. It's the color and gender that you are. So why is the military pushing this nonsense? We got to have the best people in the roles. There's no way. If I had to fly a fighter jet, I would have crashed and burned. I can definitely fly a desk and take care of a general, but I know my abilities, Ryan. So tell me your perspective on all of this that they've been pushing and pushing.
Yeah, the point of the second rate and loving it. Thanks for the plug. That was I got a good chuckle out of that. Remembering that one, it is that it really comes from hubris, and it's a point that John mentioned earlier here in the segment, which is to operate with impunity, to not be held to account, to kind of just be off doing your own thing, and no one calling it into question. And the problem with that, mixed with this hubris of military leaders that feel they can do whatever they want because they can, is that we are becoming second-rate and loving it. And that is, for whatever the social topic du jour is that becomes almost the priority over the mission. And so a lot of people that take issue with these social reforms, it's not the spirit in and of itself. It's like attract more people. That's good. You get better talent pool. We all like that. The problem comes when it's these things that shouldn't be out prioritizing the mission, but do. And we kind of, in the article, parallel it to these other militaries abroad that we used to kind of mock and go, they're just a bloated, socialized jobs protection program, relatively ineffective, but they give the otherwise unemployable work. And then we looked at ourselves as like, okay, well, isn't that what we're becoming veritably in the military here in the States? Is like the defense of the nation and the betterment of the defense almost becomes a secondary or tertiary aim to some of these initiatives. And that's really what's disconcerting to us.
I agree 100% with that. For years ago, we used to laugh at the Russians, because the Russians fighter pilots couldn't go out and engage, without the ground controllers giving them permission and telling them where to go, basically. And yes, and that was our big advantage, Our guys could operate independently. They had the authority to do what they needed to do, and now we flipped that on the head. Now you got to call Washington D.C. while you're engaged trying to, track a guy, and you got to call
but
Washington D.C. to get permission to fire.
But General Milley's talking to President Xi to tell him that he's going to call him if there's something goes down.
Okay,
so don't forget that part.
Yeah. But Ryan, one thing I'd like to ask you about is you have a petition to dissolve the DoD Inspector General's office and probably move it somewhere else. The IGs, the idea behind the IG was the junkyard dog. You were going to have this independent group in there that was not in the chain of command. They were outside the chain of command, could come in and look at stuff independently, and tell you the way it was. And on the Navy side, here in Panama City, we have a Navy base that does a lot of research and development. And over the years, I've seen a lot of IG inspections, and it's basically a paper whipping exercise. And what happened to the junkyard dog thing, that idea and the independence of that office? And what is your petition? Yeah. What's the goal of your petition?
So the aim of the petition is to remove the IG system from the Department of Defense, because so long as it's subordinate to commanders within the department, it's never going to exercise true independence. And I saw that. I provide this vignette from my experience as an IG. I was subordinate to the commander of the installation I was the inspector for. So, and that person held my career in their hands, my assignment, my appraisal, what job I was going to go to next. So if I, as IG, who's supposed to be this independent watchdog, go to my commander and go, hey, this is how it is, and he or she doesn't agree, well, I have two essentially mutually exclusive paths, one to truth and the other one to my career. And so often we see IGs opting for the latter, and understandably so. They're humans. They need a livelihood, and this is it. But it's so wrought throughout the department with those conflicts of interest that you can never have any kind of independence. That when you go to an IG, your chance of an investigation being carried out in good faith and with due diligence is now so extraordinarily low that you might as well not file. A lot of people do not file because they invite retribution while at the same time not getting any chance for justice. And so the petition is, we got to move it out of the DOD. We got to put it in the DOJ or something elsewhere where it's not consistently influenced by the department's undue command influences.
No,
so you almost need a prosecutor's type of a mentality where you're scored on how many prosecutions you have and the success of basically guilty verdicts. Where that's the incentive structure for the participants, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right now, there's zero incentive for an inspector general who works for the department to find against the department, right? It's ludicrous.
Yeah, it's just terrible. So one of the things that's on your website, walkthetalkfoundation.org, is the testimonials. So obviously you've helped so many people, Ryan. Are there any stories, vignettes you can share, that it's gone for the right way for the military whistleblower?
Yeah, I think a lot of the victories, there are a lot of different ways to define victory. First of all, of course, there's the substantiation, but a lot of times the victory is just having closure. So the problem with a lot of these cases is not only with the conflict of interest, but that they languish for months and a lot of times years. And if you're a victim of something, you're just looking to move on with life a lot of times. You're not looking to crush people or for vengeance or what have you. You just want it to be done and moved on. And as these cases go on and they're interviewed and re-interviewed and reports are come out and FOIAs are requested, blah, 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 and it goes on for years, it's really psychologically damaging for the person. So what we provide in that regard is, and a lot of the quote-unquote victories come from the case closures. And some are wins and some are not in terms of substantiation or not, or accountability or not. But it gives the person the ability to move on with their lives. And that's a win for a lot of people, just to be like, okay, I was wronged. There's closure. Maybe I saw the outcome, maybe not, that I wanted to see, but at least I can move on with my life now and call it in the past.
Well, I think it's wonderful what you're doing for people. Have you gotten some big dog support from some congressmen or senators out there that are helping you in this fight?
Some. There's a little bit of an incestual relationship there when it comes to Congress and the Department of Defense, because it comes to big money, especially when that money's coming from our military-industrial complex, which are in certain districts. So
yeah.
The Congress can be a little bit of a fickle friend in that regard. I'll tell you, the biggest support we've gotten, there's a committee in the Senate called the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. They oversee all inspectors general throughout the government. And they've been surprisingly big proponents of this movement, and we've worked with the Government Accountability Project in doing that. But as for individual representatives and senators, the response has been tepid at best, because they're very leery, I surmise, to rock the boat in terms of that relationship, which probably results in campaign dollars.
Right.
Well, I was hoping some of them, like Senator Tommy Tuberville, who actually took a principled stand, with his holds on all the generals. You see some hope for people like that, and I know you've got an MBA from Troy State, so hopefully Senator Tuberville is higher on your list.
Yeah, that was really fascinating for me to watch. You can debate the motives of his actions till the cows come home, but it was a refreshing change of pace to just see the Congress try and hold the military to account finally. Right. And what was also fascinating to me was to watch the military's reaction, which I found to be fairly disgustingly self-centered. Because
100%.
You saw them go to the Hill clamoring about getting moved and paid and promoted, and at the same time, purporting the importance of our deference to our civilian leadership while they criticize them for not promoting. It was seethingly hypocritical, I found, and self-serving.
Well, as we wrap up this interview with the founder and president, retired Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Sweazey from WalkTheTalkFoundation.org, what has been the most satisfying thing of your, running this foundation, Ryan?
By far, people who come back to me and go, look, I had no one in my corner and you came along, so thank you. And so many people say that because it's true. They're left alone to fight for justice. Isn't that sad? The military tells them that's their duty to report wrongs, but when they do, they're totally gaslit. And so for people to come back and go, no one was on my side, especially when they said they would be, and you were, that I find to be incredibly rewarding.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for fighting for, our service members, Ryan, and we'll have you back because I love following you on LinkedIn. You just you duke it out on LinkedIn.
Yeah, my number one fan. Thanks, Veronica.
Yes. Have a happy New Year, Ryan. We'll talk soon.
You too. All right, thanks, John. Thanks, Veronica.
Happy New Year. When we come back, we'll be joined by Peter Feaman, our Florida National Committeeman, and he's running to be chairman of the RPOF. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Veronica Live, and we're here with our next guest this morning, and he is our Florida National Committeeman, Peter Feaman. And I've known Peter for 10 years, and he's always a dragon slayer for the Republican Party, and we need some dragons to be slayed. And right now, Peter is running to be our chairman of the Republican Party of Florida, because as people know, the current chairman, Christian Ziegler, he's embroiled in a sexcapade case and has not resigned. So I know that we're going to be coming back together to vote in a new chairman, and that is why Peter's running. But Peter, welcome to the show first. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Veronica. Nice to be back on your show. It's been a while. What's it been? A year? A couple of years?
Well, you like to golf, so I was always trying to hunt you down on a golf course. But I know you've been working.
Well, if things go the way I hope they go, my golf days are going to be very limited going forward. But that's okay. That's okay.
Well, that's good. We'll let President Biden know that. But on a serious note, tell people about your background, Peter, because I have your political resume here, and you've done some amazing things for the party, and you are a trial attorney. So tell us about Peter.
Well, I went to the University of Miami Law School and got my law degree there, originally from up north. But after I got to Florida, I never went back. So I've been living in Florida since 1975, and I love it. I do admit that I'm an attorney, but I like to say that I'm a recovering attorney. So that's a good thing. And I've been a trial attorney, not the kind of trial attorney that Democrats are, but corporate trial attorney, trust and probate trial attorney, that sort of thing. And then I've always been about service. And so I got involved with the Republican Party first, actually, in 1982, where I worked for a congressman who ran for governor. And then been involved in the Republican Party of Florida now for, believe it or not, 20 years. I've been on the Republican Party of Florida Executive Committee and have been helping run the Republican Party since that time. I was blessed to be elected Florida's National Committeeman in 2012, ran again in 2016 and won, ran again in 2020 and won. So I'm finishing up my third term. And back in November, Veronica, I'm looking back and where Florida is now and where it was when I first became National Committeeman. And I said, you know what? I think I've done about everything I could do to help the party. So I don't think I'm going to run for a fourth term. And then something happened that I never expected. Christian Ziegler became front page news.
All over the world.
And
so where were you when that happened? That's when that story broke. How did you hear about it, Peter?
I read it in the online, one of the online publications, and I about fell out of my chair. I said, "You got to be kidding," to myself. And then Christian did call me on Thursday, because it came out on a Wednesday. I remember that, and he said, "Listen, I haven't committed a crime. I have not done anything like that, and so I'm going to stick it out." And at that point, like I think we all thought, I just thought it was a Democrat hit job.
I did too.
And so, yeah. And so I said, "Yeah, hang in there. You know, these hit pieces, you know, they're not true. So just hang in there." Well, as the story developed, much to our surprise, I think, and disappointment, things started to look not good for the party. Not good. And so what happened was people started to call for his resignation and whatnot. And now, unfortunately, here we are. And we have a special meeting on January 8th to remove him. And then we'll go from there. So that's kind of, but when all that broke, I thought to myself, you know what, after 20 years of service, this is not the right time to walk away from the party, and the state that I love. And so I made a decision that if there's a vacancy for the chairman's job, I am going to run for it because this is experience, proven leadership. It's necessary at this time, and I intend to, if I'm elected, restore the good name and luster of the party, and to raise money like crazy. That's probably the most important thing. And why is that? Well, there's the obvious reasons, support our candidate, but most importantly is our local counties. Our local county Republican executive committees and our county parties need money, and especially the smaller one, the rural counties. And so by raising a lot of money from the party, we can then come and help the local parties and elect Republicans from the top down. And so that's really where the emphasis has to be. Get that money to the local parties down into the local communities, and keep the Republican Party great, or, as I'd like to say, make the Republican Party of Florida great again.
So
you know, Peter, I really want to thank you for stepping up, you know, because true leaders step in and lead when it's needed. And you know, a lot of people, particularly in RPOF, because the turnover has been so high, you know, they seem to forget that we've been through this before. And we had strong leaders step up to restore the party, you know, back in when was that, 2010 timeframe?
2010,
you know,
that's right, John. You're right.
We were basically bankrupt going into an election, and you know, it was all because of Jim Greer, you know, and we voted, we started a movement to get, you know, recall him, basically get rid of him, and we did that. And it took a lot of work by a lot of people to get the party restored and ready for a presidential election cycle again. And we're in the same position again.
So Peter, I have a question though. Why do you think Christian Ziegler has not stepped down? The governor has called for him to step down. They've docked his pay. I mean, the story was out there again on Christmas Day on the Daily Mail, which the whole world looks at. Why has he not stepped down? I mean, because right now this is impacting the party.
You know, Veronica, I can't speak for Christian. I can only pray for him and his family and his 3 beautiful children. That's really all we can do, and just ask that somehow the right thing happens. Okay. But I don't want to speak for him either. I haven't spoken to him in a while, and so I don't know where he's at, where his head's at, and all of that. But I do know, unfortunately, that we have to move forward as a party. And what's best for the party is that we move forward without him at this time, unfortunately.
Well, I agree with that. because all roads to the White House come through Florida. So we've got to be strong. And, that's my next question to you is this election we think is going to happen January 8th. And an article came out yesterday saying petition claims Evan Power, who's our vice chair, is rigging the Florida GOP chairman election. And people are calling for a fair voting date. So tell me why January 8th to the layman out there that doesn't understand what's going on. Why is this a bad thing when you all are coming together, I guess, for your normal quarterly in February?
Right. Well, it's actually we're coming together in February for our annual meeting, which we have every year in February in Orlando, which is a more of a central location. They initially called a special meeting for January 8th to remove Christian. I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with a special meeting for that. But then what they did is they kind of slipped in, if you will, that they said, and oh, by the way, we're going to create a vacancy. And then at that very same meeting, we're going to fill that vacancy. Now, you don't have to be a lawyer to look at that and go, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. You're going to create a vacancy and then fill it. And so I think that's what the folks are upset about. I don't think they're upset about the fact that there's a special meeting in January to consider removing our chairman. Okay, that's completely legitimate. But then if that would happen, of course, there's no certainty that would happen. If that would happen, to then say, and okay, since we're all in Tallahassee, we're going to have an election too. That doesn't pass the straight face test, as they say. And I think that's why folks are upset because, A, you have the potential to disenfranchise our voters because the meeting's on a Monday afternoon in Tallahassee. I know for a fact people I've spoken to from Lee County, Collier County, Monroe County, they can't get up there on a Monday afternoon. Charlotte County.
And you can't Zoom in to vote, Peter? You can't make it fair and square?
We have no
proxy voting.
Yeah, we have no provision. We have no provision in our rules or bylaws for Zoom or proxy voting because we want to make sure that we have election integrity. And we don't want any possibility of this being some type of irregularities going on. So we still demand that people vote in person. And I don't have a problem with that.
I don't, Peter, why are they not following the precedent that happened with Jim Greer? I mean, he was basically drummed out of office and then a vacancy declared. And then at the next annual meeting, we had a vote, and there were a lot of people wanting to run for chairman, so that was a pretty good group of folks out there and changing the leadership. And I don't understand, where does the executive board get the authority to elect a new chairman? I didn't think that was in their purview.
Well, I think the headline to that story says it all. It's rigged.
Well, it's suspect because the people are saying it's in Tallahassee. We've never had an election in Tallahassee before. It's on a weekday. We've never had an election on a weekday because people work. Our folks, our Republican
Party
volunteers. In Florida is made up of regular grassroots folks. And so a Monday election on right after a holiday period, all the way in Tallahassee, people just say, wait a minute, I want to vote for a new chairman, but I can't make that meeting. And we have already scheduled, only a month later, our annual meeting in February in Orlando, so why not just have it then? And then they said, well, we need to raise money, and we can't wait.
well, they can't raise money during the session anyways, right? Which starts in January. I mean, all of our fundraising basically comes to a stop, particularly with some of the...
The legislature can't raise money, but the chairman or the vice chairman can raise money, and of which I have been also working the phones to raise money, and I'm prepared to raise a significant amount of money as soon as I'm elected chair. And I've had major donors tell me, as soon as you're elected chair, Pete, we will immediately help you with significant financial contributions. And if we have a 30-day temporary shortfall, well, we did that at the RNC. After the debacle with Romney in 2012, we had a slight shortfall, and we borrowed money for a couple of months and then immediately went to work, raised money, got it paid back, and by the end of the year, we had tens of millions on hand. So this is not unprecedented. It's not unusual, and we'll get through it. In that year that we removed Jim Greer, we ended up electing Rick Scott as our governor. We ended up electing Marco Rubio as our senator. We moved forward, and we never looked back. And with the right leadership in place, we can do the same thing this time around.
I agree. And Peter, you're one of the most articulate Republican spokespeople in the state of Florida. And I sincerely mean that. I've heard you for many, many years speak contemporaneously, and you are so far ahead of Evan in doing that. And the other aspect that you bring is the national leadership aspect. If we get a new chairman, if Evan does win for chairman, we're also looking at a new National Committeeman and a new National Committeewoman. We're going to be sending 3 people to the RNC in an election year with zero experience at the national level. And I really think we're hurting ourselves badly doing that.
Yeah, that's a good point, John, because this is not just an election for the state of Florida. When I go to RNC meetings, Florida has become a model for the whole country. And literally the entire nation is looking at Florida and saying, okay, who will you send us? Because you are our leader. Your state party leads the way. And so next week, you're going to see a ton of endorsements of true conservatives, RNC members who will be endorsing me for my race, because this truly is more than a state election. This is a national election for which I believe we need somebody who's been on the national scene for a number of years, like I have. And so stay tuned.
Well, on that note,
I'd always hope that you would be the leader, step up to the RNC chairmanship job. But I'll take the Florida chairmanship now for you.
I wanted to mention one of your big endorsements on all your social media is Harmeet Dillon, and she's an attorney, and we all know her as a Republican Party California National Committee woman who took on Ronna McDaniel, and I was hoping she was going to win, because why we have this other person in there who's lost so many races. What a great endorsement, because I love this National Committee woman.
Yeah, Harmeet's terrific, and I worked as hard as I could to get her elected, but we couldn't overcome the establishment at the RNC, but we're not giving up on that either. But I first met Harmeet at the convention in Cleveland in 2016. She and I both served on the Rules Committee there, and we fought side by side against the Never Trumpers to keep them and the Cruz folks, I might add, from disrupting that convention. They tried to, but we beat them back, and Harmeet was right there leading the way, and I was right by her side. So we've been allies and political companions ever since.
So how are you working to win this now, Peter? Because, to me, it's bigger than Florida, as you said. This is about taking back the White House in 2024, and we've got to have Florida leading the way to do this. So how are you working to win this chairmanship?
I'm personally calling as many members of the voting committee that I can, including state representatives and state senators, just to let them know of my track record, and that I want to bring to the party a concept that we haven't seen lately in our leaders, and that's called servant leadership. That you're leading by serving and serving by leading, instead of building a resume, instead of using it as a stepping stone, instead of wanting to be elected to some other political public office. I'm trying to convince people that I'm doing it because A, I love our country, B, I love our state, C, I love our party. And the Republican Party of Florida is the best vehicle that I know to make Florida great again and keep Florida great again. And when Florida prospers, the country prospers. And that's what we need right now.
So true. So true.
Peter, you know, believe it or not, Peter, what just came to my mind, what I was going to ask you next question is you're a model for servant leaders. And you just took the words right out of my mouth. And you truly are the model of a servant leader in what we need today.
Well, thank you, John. And, you know, there's been so much turnover on our committee, John, as you know, and Veronica, that people, I have to reintroduce myself to people and let them know, hey, I've been in this for 20 years. I've been the National Committeeman for 12 years. And the reason I've done it is because of the love in my heart for the folks and for the Republican Party. And now is the time to step up with somebody who's been around for 20 years, who can drive this car, this Republican Party car, out of the ditch that it's been in, get behind the wheel, and lead the caravan down the road to continued prosperity and freedom. And I'm prepared to drive that car and fill the trunk full of cash with full of donations, so that we can refund our party and lead the caravan, lead the nation into the next election, and we will. And
you know, Peter, on that, I want to comment on the turnover. You know, you may remember a few years ago there was a big move to have term limits on state committee men and women and chairmen, and you know, I fought against that because, and I'm trying to remember Peggy, I'm having a brain lock here.
Peggy Simone,
former state. Peggy Simone, yeah, she got up very articulate about why we needed institutional memory. The turnover was already so high that we were lacking institutional memory, and I fear that's where we've come, is that the turnover, despite the fact that we don't have term limits, the institutional turnover on our chairmen and committee men and committee women is so high that we've forgotten how to operate as a party.
Yes, that's correct. And so what we need is senior leadership with the energy and mind of a 40-year-old, and that's me. Okay. Senior leadership, because I've got 5 kids and 10 grandkids, and that'll keep you young. That's for sure.
So, Peter, explain how once Christian is ousted, how will the voting? Who's voting for the chairman?
So we have our executive committee, which is made up of state committee man, state committee woman, and a county chairman from each county. So that's 3 times 67. So if you do the math right, what's that? 201 people. And then we have 10 appointees from the House, from the governor, I mean. And then we have 10 House members, 10 Senate members, and then all of our Republican elected congressmen and our Florida cabinets and our 2 senators. Now, the question is, you have to be present in order to vote. So how many of those people will actually show? And that goes back to the point we made earlier, Veronica, that by having a meeting in Tallahassee on a Monday, a lot of the people who are eligible to vote simply won't be able to make it. Okay. And that's why I think other people are accept. Now, for me, I'll tell you, if they have the vote on January 8th, I'm good with that. If they have it in February, an annual meeting, I'm good with that, whatever the body decides. But apparently we're going to get there on January 8th. We'll have the vote to remove. And if it's successful, then they're going to vote again to see if we're going to have an election. And then if they vote to have an election, then we're going to have an election right then, which is just kind of funky to me. It's just kind of weird.
So Peter, maybe I'm misunderstanding. Is the meeting on the 8th, is that, I thought that was just the executive committee, the 40 members of the executive committee that were trying to do this. This is a general meeting, they called it, a special meeting?
It's a general meeting. They have called a general meeting of the entire body.
I didn't think they had time. I thought you had to do 30-day notice or something to do one of those.
15 days. And
15
so
days,
when
okay.
we had our special meeting of the executive board in Orlando, the Sunday before Christmas, they called the meeting for January 8th. They had 30 people sign a petition at that meeting and called the meeting for January 8th. But the whole thing was already, set up.
Yeah. Well, there's a good chance they won't have a quorum either, and that's the other side of that. Is
there
if they have a quorum.
That's correct. That's correct. There's a chance we may not have a quorum. So the whole thing is weird. That's all I can say. But hey, if we're gonna have the election on January 8th, I'm gonna run for it, and I'm gonna fight within the system that I've been given, right or wrong.
So I wanted you to tell us why taking out President Biden is so important. I honestly feel, Peter, and I thought this last time, this is the most important election ever. And now that we've been under this nightmare with our open borders, we've had record-setting days of 15,000 illegals coming through. It's a mess in the Ukraine. It's a mess with China. Is this not the most important election of our time? And you've been in politics a long time.
Veronica, I used to say that we're fighting for the heart and soul of America. I don't say that anymore. What I say now is we are fighting for the very survival of our republic called the United States of America. Because if we do not take control of the White House and take back Congress, we will lose our republic. And we know now that's not an overstatement. Why? Well, just look at our southern border. That is an invasion, and our leaders are doing nothing. At least the governor of Texas is trying to do something, setting up their own. If we continue to do nothing, maybe we need to raise the citizens' militia to stop the invasion on the southern border. It's that serious. And then that's not the only thing. Now they're trying to keep Mr. Trump off the ballot in Colorado and now Maine. Okay, they always accuse us of what they themselves do. And so they say, Trump will end our democracy. No, you're the ones that are ending democracy when you unilaterally and arbitrarily remove your number one opponent from a ballot. That's the end of democracy. And so, yes, we are fighting for the survival of our republic, or as I like to say, this 250-year-old grand experiment in freedom that the world has never seen. We must not let it come to an end on our watch, because if America's light grows dim, the world gets to be a dark place. You mentioned Ukraine. You mentioned Israel. Yes, when America's light of leadership is dim, the world gets dark. Now is the time.
Wow.
I know we need to be
powerful.
the Reagan's shining city on a hill. That's been one of my favorite quotes for a long time, and that's what America is to the world.
That's right. We've been a beacon of hope and freedom, but through managed immigration, we let people come in, not unbridled immigration. As I wrote in my book, Europe as we know it will be gone in 25 years because of their unbridled immigration policies. And so when we see what's happening on our southern border, millions of people, we can't survive. We can't survive like this. And so now is the hour. Everybody must get out and work for our Republican candidates this November. Everybody must get out and vote. Phone calls, voter registration, get out the vote, everything we can think of. The hour is upon us to save the country. And I do not overstate the case.
Well, very powerful. And so on a final note, Peter, what do you want to tell these people that maybe have already committed to Evan Power, and why they should vote for you?
I suspect that they committed possibly because he had already declared for National Committeeman, not chairman. And they probably said, Okay, well, I guess we'll just let our commitment slide over. They probably didn't know that I was running or going to run. And so now they have an opportunity to take a second look. It's sort of like college recruiting. There are great athletes that commit to a college or university, but then they get more information. They're allowed to reconsider their decision. And then on signing day, they say, no, I'm actually going to go to Georgia instead of Alabama, something like that. And our national signing day, if you use the college football analogy, may be January 8th. And you can get more information about me. And then it's a secret ballot, and you can vote what you think is in the best interest of Florida and the best interest of the country. You can visit my Facebook page, my Twitter page, my Instagram page. You can get more information on my Facebook page. There's a podcast that you can watch and hear and get more information. And then on January 8th, if we have an election on that day, let's make Florida great again.
Well, we wish you well, Peter, and good luck. And we'll have you back to see, how it played out.
I would love to be back. I love the folks in the Panhandle. So I bought a house in North Florida. Didn't quite get to the Panhandle, but I got to Green Cove Springs.
Oh, that's close. Jacksonville's good enough. Yeah,
you're getting closer. Well, we wish you well.
Right.
It's been a pleasure having Peter Feaman. He's our Florida National Committeeman. He has thrown his hat in the ring, running for to be our next chairman of the Republican Party of Florida. And we wish you well. Happy New Year, Peter.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to Veronica Live. And now I'm here with my wingman, John. Wow, John, we've had a busy morning already, but I know you and I wanted to talk some politics. And I see breaking news while we were on air now. Trump brands Nikki Haley. He's calling her Nikki New Taxes as the polling titans. Are you not tired of Nikki? I mean, that's one of the stories in our stack. And the word slavery, she for some reason couldn't say that word. So I don't know. This is insane.
Well, it started with me about a month ago when she had the Instagram. She wanted everybody's account, the
right.
government to verify everybody's social media.
So,
and I was outraged.
Yes, you've been outraged forever on that story.
Right. It's like, how could you be a serious candidate for the president of the United States and not read the First Amendment that says the government shall not, the government shall not. And when it comes to free speech, and it's like the government has no business verifying anybody's social media account. The government has no business demanding algorithms, search algorithms from private companies. It's none of their damn business. And to have her do that, she not only said it once, she doubled down on it, and then she tripled down on it. And when the pushback came, then she started running. So, it goes back to what are their core values. And again, here, what's the latest now? She's in this slavery question. Somebody asked her about the cause of the Civil War. One of the audience members at some event she was at asked her about the causes of the Civil War, and she wouldn't say the word slavery. And of course, DeSantis is.
What state was she a governor of? Give me a freaking break.
South Carolina, right?
I mean, she fought the Confederates flag, and she cannot say that word. I'm just like, I'm so over it. I mean, I'm totally ignoring that story because we have so many other real issues to deal with, like our border being invaded, and then we have to hear that all week.
But what's going on though, is and to say, it's an attempt to take out Trump. Okay, they want to get rid of Trump, and they want to replace her. They don't want Ron DeSantis. And so what's the alternative? Why Nikki Haley? Why? You got to keep asking why, because she is a swamp monster. By the way, that was my nickname for her. Nikki Swamp Monster Haley, okay? Because she is a swamp monster. And this just to prove her liberal side, Rhino side here, is there was a breaking news yesterday that liberal LinkedIn billionaire co-founder Reid Hoffman has donated $250,000 to Nikki Haley's super PAC. Now, this guy is a hardcore Democrat leftist and 100% in for Biden. and he's just trying to mess with trying to get Nikki Haley pushed up because she's easier to beat. And so, by the way, he also donated to Liz Cheney in 2022. Same thing.
She's one of our special children.
Right, but you have this whole cabal of Wall Streeters there, led by J.P. Morgan's Jamie Dimon, all billionaires, okay, who's also doing the same thing. He's begging people to support Nikki Haley in the primary, but he's a hardcore going to vote for, Biden Democrat. So you just need to look at what these people are doing and ask yourself, why are they supporting her? Why are they pushing her? Because they don't like Trump, and they know if Trump gets out, all the Trump voters are going to Ron DeSantis. They're not going to Nikki Haley. They're going to Ron DeSantis. That's just the bottom line.
I agree. This is the third person to take out, because it is to take out DeSantis. And then we've got the story. And so it's about Nikki and slavery. So it says, after getting eviscerated for a full day for her response, Haley tried to clarify her remarks during an interview on the radio. She goes, I mean, of course, the Civil War was about slavery, but what's the lesson in all of that? That we need to make sure that every person has freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do and be anything that they want to be without any one of government getting in the way. That was the goal of what was this is about. Yes, I know it was about slavery. I'm from the South. Of course, I know it's about slavery. And it just kept going on and on and on in stories about it. But DeSantis's quote was pretty good. He's like, it was a partisan achievement because the people were fighting Lincoln. The people that wanted to preserve it, they were Democrats. And so the Republican Party did that. And that's something that you should acknowledge and be proud of as a Republican. So, that we ended slavery was what he was talking about. So
exactly right. It's like the civil rights movement. It wasn't the Democrats that pushed the civil rights movement. The Voting Rights Act. That was not the Democrats. That was the Republicans that got the job done. And it's the same thing with what's and I'm trying to remember Dinesh D'Souza's movie. I think it was the one about Hillary where he documented the Democrat Party's history of supporting and enforcing slavery and separation of the races. That's all Democrats throughout history. So it's the Republicans that fought against it because we believe in individual freedom. Everybody is created equal. And so it's just back to Nikki Haley can't operate because she doesn't have an original thought. She doesn't have a set of core principles. It has to be on the teleprompter.
And Christy
right,
needs
exactly.
to go.
So all these people that keep talking her up are crazy. I just think it's, and then we have all these efforts to take out Trump. I mean, everybody knows about the Colorado, where the Colorado Supreme Court, split 4-3 on taking Trump off the ballot. And even the Chief Justice of the Colorado Supreme Court says this is the wrong path. We should not be doing this. He actually dissented in it.
And you sent me the story. Maine becomes second state to bar Trump from 2024 primary ballot. And it says in a 34-page written decision, Maine Secretary of State Sheena Bellows, a Democrat who was all over CNN the last couple days, said the Constitution bars a second Trump term because of his actions surrounding the Jan 6, 2021 attack at the Capitol following his loss. And her decision, in which she found he is not qualified to hold the office of president, comes after the Colorado's highest court ruled that last week that he's ineligible to be on the state's ballot. But these people are making stuff up. It's all, it's all malarkey again, and she wants her 5 minutes of fame, and she needs to put some, what's wrong with these people? It's 5 minutes of fame.
I think you're right. It's a 5 minutes of fame. First off, she's not even elected. Okay. She was appointed by the legislature. So an appointed Democrat saying that the Republicans can't put who they want on the ballot.
Well, she's going to get some big position now for, taking this forward, because every single thing with Trump I think we're on 7 years now. It's drag him through the mud over and over and over again, just for the damn headline.
Right, but they don't care. They don't care about the law, though, Veronica. That's the problem. It's like first off, let's start at the beginning. Show me where Donald Trump has been convicted of insurrection. Okay, show me somebody that has found him guilty, some court that has found him guilty, where he had a trial by jury, by his peers. He was able to defend himself. Show me that. It hasn't happened yet because guess what? Donald Trump was president of the United States, and the president of the United States cannot engage in an insurrection to overthrow himself. I mean, it is so absurd on the face of it. How rational people can even discuss it is beyond me. But
because it's not the rational people discussing it, it's these loser libs, and it's all about the headline. And like you and I, we're in this business every day, but the average person is numb to it at this point because every other day there's some new stupid headline, being pushed forward by a loser lib. So. But
the problem is the Democrats believe this. The Democrats believe that the Russia, pee-pee tape, in the stuff, they believe that's real. There are Democrat voters that believe that is real, even though it's been proven time and time again. It's all a Democrat hoax by Hillary Clinton's, campaign operatives, paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign. And yet they believe it's 100% true. So, I'm just, although I got to admit, I was glad to see Don Jr. came out and said, no way will Nikki Haley be vice president of the United States under Donald Trump's administration.
I love it.
Which is like, thank you.
Right. Well, and where's our lovely president's on vacation again in the Virgin Islands to celebrate New Year's Eve. Oh, he's so special.
Does this guy do anything other than take vacations? I mean, he's
no.
Beach. He's on vacation here. He's on vacation there.
So, did you have a good Christmas as we wrap up? The show. I mean, I got the on-air light that my husband bought me, and then of course the new mic. And I know you got a new mic, which I'm so excited because we're definitely going to fully be stereo compatible now on your end too.
All right.
So, that's
real professionals. Okay.
Yes. And do you have any,
well, I did.
Go ahead.
Santa did come and Santa left me a new Ferris zero-turn lawnmower.
Oh my God.
Which may not mean much to you. And then he left me a new Kubota RTX 1130 UTV, utility vehicle for the farm here. So.
Oh, Lord. You better wear a helmet and a seatbelt.
Yeah.
What color is it? Is it camo?
No, I didn't get the camo. I got the orange Kubota. And then the Ferris mower it's red. And I was out trying to drive it yesterday.
Oh, Lord. And you still have all your appendages?
It's zero turn. So you push the levers back and forth. And I think I need some driving lessons.
Oh, great.
On zero turn.
He needs a learner's permit.
I would go out and practice some more before I go trying to go through the woods with it.
Oh,
because I know I'm going to crash into a tree.
Well, no, it was a great, these holidays always go so fast. My daughter did come home. She worked from home most of it, but it was so nice to have her in the house. And then my tech guy, aka my husband, he cooked schnitzel, prime rib, turkey, gumbo, beignets. I think the poor guy was exhausted because my daughter sent her list of this is what Dad will be cooking for me. So New Year's, we're definitely gonna have to get back to the gym, and one of my New Year's resolutions is to work out more, pray more. Which I had a barbell. I keep making that resolution every year. It hasn't worked much. I know. I ordered a ladies barbell set. It came yesterday. My husband's like, whose barbells are these? I was like, well, obviously your girlfriend ordered them, So
what's the heaviest weight in a ladies barbell set? Just curious.
I think the whole thing's 120. I won't be there. I don't need that. It's as you get older, it's all about toning and not dropping the weight on your toe.
That hurts when you drop those things.
I am having a little New Year's Eve gathering tomorrow, and I'm half Spanish from Spain. So one of the traditions, I do this every time I have a New Year's Eve party, is you put 12 grapes in a bag, and all of your guests get a bag of grapes. And then as the clock strikes 12, you have to eat a grape for each strike. And I don't know why they do this. I mean, one grape represents each month So there's 12, but I literally try to choke people every year when I do this Spanish tradition. So
It's a small grapes, okay? It's a small.
I
not the
know. One year
jumbos.
I accidentally bought seated with my kids when they were younger, and they're like, "What's this, Mom?" So I will have a few people over.
Raisins count?
No
Raisins count?
raisins. No, it's got to be grapes.
No raisins.
So,
Okay.
but oh my goodness, what a week it's been. I'm trying to see if there's anything else in the stack of stuff, which is always lovely that we want to chat about.
The one that I thought was pretty good was the Christmas travelers using EVs.
Oh
Buying
my
themselves
gosh.
up a creek.
Yes.
That was a great Christmas story. Like, 'cause everybody travels, home to Christmas and stuff. And if you have an EV, it's even worse because you got to stop and charge the stupid thing.
Oh, I know what we need to
months.
chat about is Congressman Dunn announced his reelection for CD2.
Oh, yes.
And let me get that story because what is this going to be, his fourth term, John? What term is
I believe that's what it said, fourth term, yeah.
So, I mean, my problem is people continually complain to me, why isn't he like a Congressman Gates?
This will be his fifth term.
Fifth term, okay. Yeah. Well, is it not time to try somebody else is my question because, of course I voted for him, every single time, but I get the complaints and I don't know if his staff gets the complaints. So I think it's time.
I'd like to see us get more of a firebrand like Congressman Gates, in CD1 next door. That's the kind of people we need that are going to get up there and fight because as Peter pointed out, we are so far past the line, that of a constitutional, we don't follow the Constitution anymore. We're way past that point.
Well, I think we're making it up as we go.
Right, exactly. It's
right.
just whatever the king dictates, that's the government we have today, because that's exactly what Biden is doing. It's Obama said, I have a pen and a phone, and they mean it. And it's like, well, we'll keep doing all this stuff we're not allowed to do, and then if you don't like it, somebody can sue us in court, and it'll take 2 or 3 years to sort it out, like the student loan thing. We're going to forgive all these student loans, and then it takes 2 years to work through the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court says you don't have the authority to do that. And then they turn around and they say, well, we'll make a couple of changes and we'll do it anyway. So it's like, there's no limiting principle to government anymore. And that's the frightening part. When there's no limiting principle, they can do whatever they want to you, and they'll do it.
If I'm sending you to Congress, I want you to fight for me. I mean, I do like what he said. He said, my wife and I prayed a lot about this decision. What it ultimately came down to is our grandkids. I look at them and ask, what kind of country and world do we want to leave for them? Right now, the future looks dicey. Russia's on the march, China's on the march, and we are over $33 trillion in debt, spending money foolishly, and our elite institutions are increasingly hostile to our traditional values. Okay, I love that. But what is he doing for the voters? You know what I'm saying? Matt Gaetz, everybody wants to chat with. He's got like a podcast he does. Like he's out there, at that Lincoln dinner that you and I went to over in Walton County. Yeah, it was his area, but he gave a kick-ass speech. So
he was on fire, and there's principles behind what he's doing, and he's standing up for those principles, and he's not folding, he's not caving, and that's I'm afraid that's what we have with Congressman Dunn. That's what I'm saying. I'm hoping, I don't know who it is that would step up. At some point.
I don't know.
We need
I keep hearing General
like Matt Gaetz.
General McQueen. That's why they put him in the superintendent position, rather, because they're grooming him to be the next person. But we've got to have a fighter. We have to have a fighter, and it's got when we elect you to go to these positions, we need to see you out on the street. When you're home, we need to see you, trying to get on national media to fight the fight. I just don't know anymore if this is, I've literally fielded complaints for several years now because people just don't ever see them. And maybe that's part of it. You got to have some town hall meetings and let people know what you're doing.
Well, that's your home district and you represent the people here. You're not going to Washington, to just play games or, be buddies with other congressmen or leaders or whatever. That's not what the job is. The job is to represent the people. And you take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. I mean, we did that, you and I did that, and either you mean it or you don't. Yeah. And I think too many of them just take it as just a superficial, hey, I have to say that to get into office, and they don't really mean the words behind it, So, if you swear an oath to God and you go back on it, what does that say about you? What does it say about you as a person?
Well, I don't know.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of our congressmen are like that.
Well, and then you and I field the complaints. So, that's the thing. You can't just be on Facebook having your staffer post stuff. You need to be holding events and working hard on our behalf. So I wish him well. I'm sure it'll be easy for him to win that seat again. But, like literally everybody that chats with me, and I know with you as well, because we're political people, and so everybody always wants our opinion, but they also give us their opinion. They want a fighter in there, and they always equate it to Matt Gaetz, So,
well, when he sets the standard, for principled leadership, then you measure everything else against that.
Right.
And that's kind of the way I look at it.
Well, it's been a great show. I have big shows still ahead here, and Sheriff Ford reached out to me, so he's going to be joining us. His competitor, which he has a challenger this time, former deputy in the Bay County Sheriff's Office, Andy Durham. I think I might have butchered his name there, but he's coming on, and then I've got her name's Stephanie Brown, and she's actually a local here, and she's written a book called The Door. It's a devotional, and so we'll have her on next show to kick off the new year, because you gotta. I have the girl barbell set now, John. Will I actually use it? Then my husband thought it was
how long did that New Year's resolution last?
Well, my husband thought it was misdelivered to our front door, so
Well, it's going to be an action-packed year. We've got in Bay County, we got all the constitutional officers are up for election. The sheriff, supervisor of elections, the tax collector, the clerk of the courts. We've got a lot of elections in Bay County coming up. Local people.
Well, and as researching for Alan West to come on, I mean, you've got to win the local elections to go national. And that was what was so you fight local to win national is what he has all over his social media.
Yep.
And that was what was shocking to me, because I didn't realize, until I started researching and prep for him to come on, that he was running for this smaller position. But he's a warrior, and if people come to you, you have to fight the fight. So I do wish him all the best. And oh my gosh, that was a great interview. And of course, Lieutenant Colonel retired Ryan Sweazey, founder and president of Walk the Talk Foundation. It was great to have him back on. And then Peter Feaman. I mean, these were all regulars. Our Florida National Committeeman running for chairman. I just want the race to be fair. I mean, Evan's been on the show numerous times. He's great. But I just want a fair race. If it's supposed to be Peter, or if it's supposed to be Evan, let's make sure it's not, a deck stacked against the other person. And Peter's been around. He definitely has the political pedigree, and he's a trial attorney, and he's been on the national stage. So, it's going to be very interesting how this all pans out.
I was fine with Evan, running for National Committeeman to replace Peter. I think it would be a good team to have Peter to be the chairman, Evan to run, for man, and what's her name, Linda Trocine, run for National Committee woman to replace Kathleen King, a very good friend of mine. And I think, but we need leadership at our not only in the state party, we need Peter's leadership at the national party level, at the Republican National Committee. That group is broken. With Ronna McDaniel up there,
oh my gosh,
it's a complete disaster. And
that's why I was so excited
we need
when
people
I saw
like Peter to get up there and fight.
That what's her name that endorsed him, the attorney that ran against Ronna, Deet. Oh my goodness, I'm terrible with names this morning.
Harvey Dillon.
Yes,
Harvey Dillon.
Yes. So I was so excited that that's a big name. But, here's the bottom line. Christian hasn't resigned. What the heck? And as I asked Peter that question, and why hasn't Christian Ziegler resigned? We've literally, that story about the threesome was on the Christmas edition of the Daily Mail, which is a worldwide newspaper, again. Like, they recycled it again, and it's been in every national outlet, and it's embarrassing. And we need to move on, and it's not about your threesome sex life. It's about winning the White House, and I don't know why people's egos are in the way of this, John. And plus, I want total package candidates.
Well, the party has a mechanism for doing that. We removed a chairman, Jim Greer, in the past, who actually went to prison.
Wow.
For the stuff
I don't know
did,
those stories.
And,
I was in Japan
the party
when all
has
these
a
things
mechanism
happened.
for doing that.
Yeah.
But, the thing is, we're in an election year, and you need to take action and get the best leadership in there, get in the people that can raise the money that's needed to win, because you do need money to win. And let's get the best leadership team in there. Let's vote for Peter for chairman. And like I said, I'm fine with Evan for National Committeeman, but let's send an experienced team up to the Republican National Committee.
Yeah. Check your egos out the door and do what's right for Florida, because we cannot win the White House if we don't have our house in order in Florida. Well, what a great show. Happy New Year, John. Hopefully the mics sound great as our techie man puts the show together for us. And, please, if you want to sponsor Veronica Live, reach out to me, because, I would love some sponsorships, because that helps get us to the next level and get it out in front of more people. But we still are having thousands of downloads, and it's, the national guests are still showing up because they like what we deliver. And it's been, what a big year, 2023, with all of our guests, John. It truly was our biggest year, and to not be on radio airwaves, oh well. We'll continue pushing forward with all of our guests. It's funny because I look through the guest list. I always forget who's been on our show, because we've had so many big wigs. But let's see. Ambassador Grinnell loved that one. CFO Petronas was on. We had the symphony guy from Panama City. That was so much fun. Of course, Mayor Rowan, he's in the crosshairs all the time. Dr. Carol Swain, Adversity is the Next Diversity. Oh my gosh, we've had so many famous people this year. So we'll continue fighting the fight with, Senator Scott and Senator Rubio coming back on, General Petraeus. We'll get these guests, and I thank you too for being my main wingman, John. Happy 2024.
Well, it's a lot of fun, and I think we work well together. So I think 2024 for the show is going to be a banner year. It really is.
Excellent. As we take the White House. So God bless everyone.
Correct.
And look for the show and share it with your friends. Take care. Bye, John.
Bye, everybody.